Good afternoon, Community 2733 and Team 31 and 28 mathematicians. This afternoon I'm going to just talk you through two different problems. The first problem is going to be multiplication of decimals using the dot method, and the second is multiplication of decimals using an area model. Okay, so the first problem we're going to solve is this one here down at the bottom, which is 3 times 5/100ths. Okay, so when I do this problem, I am going to be showing you 3 times 5/100ths using dots. So the first thing I need to think about is how many copies am I making and what am I making copies of. So in this case, I'm going to be making 3 times 5/100ths. So I'm going to be making 3 copies of 5/100ths. Okay, so first in my place value chart, I need to show 5/100ths. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to place 5 dots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in the hundredths place, and that's going to represent 5/100ths. But I want to show 3 times that amount, so I'm going to make 3 copies of that 5/100ths. So here's my second copy, and here's my third copy. Okay, now if you count up all of the hundredths, how many do you get? That's right, you get 15/100ths. And when I hear that, 15/100ths, I think to myself, wait a second, I can't have more than 10/100ths in the hundredths place because I know that 10/100ths is equivalent to 1/10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group together 10 of those hundredths, okay, and I know that 10/100ths is equivalent to 1/10. Okay, so I'm going to group those together, I'm going to bundle them up, and I'm going to move them to the tenths place, and I'm going to write 1/10 because I know that 10/100ths is equivalent to 1/10. Now, when I look for my answer, I can see that 3 times 5/100ths is 1/10, and what I have left over now that I've moved those 10/100ths is 5/100ths. If I place my decimal, I know that the decimal is between the ones place and the tenths place, and I'm going to put a 0 in the ones place as I do not have any ones. I can see that 3 times 5/100ths is equal to 15/100ths, or 1/10 and 5/100ths. You can also look at it like this. 3 times 5/100ths is equal to 15/100ths. This would be the equation written out in standard form, and the product, or the answer, in standard form as well. So the problem that I just solved was number D, 1D, from the Lesson 11 homework. So if you are referencing your homework, you can look at that problem for the answer. Now I'm going to move on to another problem from our homework, problem 2B, and I'm going to show you using the area model for decimal multiplication. Okay, so we're going to solve the problem 6 times 7 49/100ths. Okay, so my first step in this problem would be to create the area model. So I'm going to draw out my rectangle now. Okay, so now that I've drawn my area model, I am going to think back to my problem again. So I have 6 times 7 49/100ths. So in the area model, you want to have the number that you are making copies with. So I'm making 6 copies of 7 49/100ths. So that 6 comes out here on the side, and I'm going to multiply it by 7 49/100ths. So what I'm going to do with that 7 49/100ths is I'm going to decompose it into its ones, tenths, and hundredths in my area model. Now, I bet you're wondering to yourself, how did you do that so fast? Skills is what I have to say. Okay, so now that I have decomposed 7 49/100ths into 7 ones, 4 tenths, and 9/100ths, I'm going to multiply each of those parts by 6. So in the first box, I would write 6 times 7 ones. In the second box, I do 4 times 6 tenths. And in the last box, I do 6 times 9/100ths. So I'm really looking at that unit form. Okay, my next step would be to actually multiply them out. So actually write out 6 times 7 ones, 4 times 6 tenths, and 6 times 9/100ths. Okay, and I want to write the answer to those partial products below each box. So I'm going to do that now. So the first one's easy enough. 6 times 7 ones, well, that means that I have 42 ones. And I know that 42 ones is equal to 42 ones. I can see the unit form into the standard form. I'm going to do that in blue so it's really apparent. Okay, the next one I'm going to do is 4 times 6 tenths. So that would be 24 tenths. Now, when I hear 24 tenths, that's really giving me a red flag. It's kind of going like, warning, 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 because I know that 10 tenths is equal to 1 whole. And so I know that I have more than 10 tenths. In fact, I have 2 groups of 10 tenths. So I know that that's going to be 2 ones, and I will have 4 tenths left over. So in standard form, 24 tenths looks like 2 and 4 tenths. Finally, I'd go over to my hundredths, so I'd show 6 times 9 hundredths. So I know that that would be 54 hundredths. So I'm going to write that in. And again, those warning signs are going off. 54 hundredths. I know that 10 hundredths equals 1 tenth. So I have more than 54 hundredths. I know that that can't be in the hundredths place. So what I'm going to say is that's 5 tenths and 4 hundredths. So I'm going to write that out as 0 and 5 tenths and 4 hundredths, or 54 hundredths. Okay, my last step is to add all of my partial products together. So 42 plus 2 and 4 tenths plus 54 tenths. 54 hundredths, excuse me. So I'm going to write them in a vertical format on my next page. And you'll notice that on this page, it looks a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle. What I did here is I made sure to line up all my place values. So I have my tens, my ones, my tenths, and my hundredths. And anywhere you see a gap, you want to place a 0. You want to use those zeros as your placeholder so you really get to line up those place values. Okay, so I'm going to add up all my partial products together. And I get an answer of 44 and 94 hundredths. So taking that back to the original problem, which is 6 times 7 and 49 hundredths, and my answer will be 44 and 94 hundredths. Okay, so I hope that that was helpful to see both the, what they call in the homework, the disc method, but what we've been calling the dot method, and then the area model that we just noticed. Please feel free to email if you have any questions or bring questions on the homework tomorrow in school. Have a great evening. Take care.